Are you going to you have a brain tumor? Like, I didn't even know what to say. I was like I mean,
brain cancer is the worst thing you can get. It's like the worst thing you can get. I just don't want to die, you know?
yeah, those were some really dark days. Like, those were so bad. In honor of Brain Tumor Awareness Month, that was in May, I thought I would do a little Q&A of my last year since being diagnosed with a brain tumor in my temporal lobe. Since that diagnosis, I've been thrown into this club of very nice people that nobody wants to be in. Just some quick facts: 120 different types of brain tumors exist. The deadliest and most common malignant brain tumor is called glioblastoma, and it has a life expectancy of 12 to 18 months. It's extremely aggressive, and there's currently no cure. Glioblastoma and brain cancer is currently the leading cause of cancer deaths for children. But despite the severity of brain tumors, research is still extremely underfunded. Even those less aggressive types of brain cancers are extremely complicated. You can't just take a knife and cut it out without a significant impact to cognition and a lot of risks with long-term health challenges. So let's get into the Q&A. I've gotten a lot of questions. I asked for questions on Instagram, and these are the questions that everyone came up with. So the first question is, what type of brain tumor do you have? So I have something that's called a low-grade glioma in my temporal lobe. We don't know the exact molecular biology of it yet because they haven't taken it out yet, but they suspect low-grade glioma because of the growth rate that we're seeing with it. What does this part of the brain do? So my tumor is in my temporal lobe. It's currently on my dominant lobe. It is on my right side, and I am a lefty. For most people, their dominant lobe is their left side because they are righties, but for me, unfortunately, the right side is my dominant lobe. Temporal lobe impacts a lot of language processing. So for example, how our brain sees something and then connects the dots as to what that is. So like if I see a cup on the table, the temporal lobe will be like, this is a cup. You can drink out of the cup. And so it really is in charge of all of that language processing and how the words that we hear turn into understanding in our brain. Damage to it leads to disturbances, learning new words, understanding new information, and also making new memories. Recognizing faces, emotions, essentially a lot of very important things. But because I am left-handed, that means my right side is particularly sensitive, and that makes treatment even more difficult. The next question is, how did you discover it? So about 10 years ago, I had this episode where my face was paralyzed for a couple of days. And so I rushed to a neurologist, and the MRI showed that I had a little tiny spot on my temporal lobe, but they dismissed it as a migraine spot. They were like, you get headaches a lot, so no problem. It's just a migraine spot, you're good. Fast forward to 2023, I'd been feeling really, really weird. And so I went to get a full body MRI that I paid for out of pocket through a company called Prenuvo. It showed that there was a spot in my brain, and the spot was not that small anymore. In comparing it to that scan from 10 years ago, that means that there was something growing in there. They called me and told me to go to a neurologist. At the time, I wasn't that worried. They started tracking me every 3 months. And by the time we had the next scan, it had grown even more. It was no longer just a tiny little migraine spot that we didn't care about. The next question is, what were your symptoms? So I had a lot of really weird symptoms. Migraines was one of them, but actually we don't think the migraines were related or are related to the brain tumor. I just get a lot of headaches. But the symptoms that were more concerning were, I had multiple episodes per week where I would suddenly just disconnect from the world. Like I would just be doing something and suddenly I would feel like I wasn't in the world anymore. I would feel really cloudy and I would feel like I didn't exist in the world. When I would have these episodes, sometimes my body would start to tingle and I would feel like I was gonna vomit, feel like I was gonna myself, or feel like I was gonna pass out. And then a few times per week, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would just vomit. And this has been the case for the past like 5 to 6 years. I actually did go during all this time to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is the one who told me that these are all panic attacks, this is anxiety, you know, it's just that I need to be less stressed out, and if I'm less stressed out, I will have less panic attacks. Another symptom that I had is that I would have these really weird feelings of deja vu. Like I would see something and I would just feel weirdly unsettled about it. I was just like, that's normal, you know, that it must be anxiety, it must be just my brain playing tricks on me. Now I know that that is actually sometimes a symptom of brain tumors. The weirdest symptom that I ever had, which I only had a couple of times, is not being able to speak words and not being able to connect my brain to objects. So for example, one time I was writing out my daughter's name and I wrote it out from muscle memory, but when I read it, I didn't know what I was reading. It was extremely weird. I knew that it was her name, but I didn't know what her name was. I couldn't figure out and connect my brain to the paper, even though I had written it out. It was truthfully, that experience was one of the scariest experiences I've ever had, and it's one of those things that if you haven't experienced that, there's no way to really understand what that was like. And that happened to me a couple of other times where I would see an object and I would not really know why it was there or like what it was for. I would see this cup here and I would be like, what am I supposed to do with this? And that was really hard because I thought that I was going crazy. For so long, I just thought that I had anxiety and panic attacks. From this, we know that I was misdiagnosed for about 10 years and the symptoms just got progressively worse. How do you manage the symptoms? So now I take a pretty high dose of seizure medications twice a day, and that has made it so that I don't have those weird seizure episodes anymore, which we now know are temporal lobe seizures. So it's not that I just convulse on the ground, it's just a misfiring in the temporal lobe, which I'm grateful for because it's not as disabling as grand mal seizures. But obviously the fear is that it would lead to a grand mal seizure eventually, which is why I'm heavily medicated to make sure that these seizures, one, are kept at bay. There are definitely less of them now. And two, that they don't become a grand mal seizure while I'm like driving or doing something that could potentially be very dangerous. The medicines have a lot of cognitive side effects, which is really difficult. They make me really tired. They make me feel really dumb. Like my brain goes a lot slower because that's literally what the medication does. Luckily, I have a pretty fast baseline already. And so I like to joke, it just turns me down a notch, but the truth is that it's quite difficult. Are you going to die? I got some bad news for y'all. We are all going to die. Not today, hopefully. We can't control when it happens. We can't control how it happens. But I'm hoping that there is a world where this is not what kills me. It doesn't seem to be a particularly aggressive tumor. There is a world where I can live a long life as, new scientific discoveries come out, as medication gets better, and as we go through all of the different treatment options. And also, if the tumor keeps growing really slowly, there is always the option of removing it and then just removing it again and again. The goal is that I'm gonna live a very, very long life. We don't know what the exact prognosis is, but what we do know, which is really great that we have that data from 10 years ago, we do know that 10 years ago, I had a tiny little spot. And so we know this thing has been growing for 10 years, which is a positive thing as far as brain tumors go, because the very aggressive ones take you out in like a year or two. And so we do have that hope. If it keeps growing at this rate, it's gonna be really manageable. The first thought I had though was that question, like, am I gonna die? And the first thing that came to mind was, will I see my daughters grow up? And that was really the only thing that really mattered to me in the early days. And my doctor, my oncologist said, I will do everything I can to make sure that you get to see your daughters grow up. And that means a lot to me. The next question is, what treatment options were you offered and what did you do? But I do wanna preface this by saying I am not a doctor. Every brain tumor is so different. Molecular component of every brain tumor is really different. People have different risk factors, different tolerances, different medical teams. And so even though, I'm gonna share what my treatment plan is, I wanna make sure that nobody goes to their doctors and is like, this is what I have to do. But something that did help me was going on Reddit and talking to a lot of people and seeing what the different options were, because I just felt better educated when I did that. Because of the location of the tumor, where there's possibly speech processing and a lot of other important things, they are not taking it out right now. Right now, they are doing every 3 to 6 month scans based on what the growth looks like, and also strong doses of anti-seizure meds to control the symptoms. The thought is that eventually one day it might have to go, but the hope is to put that off as long as possible, because craniotomies are so deeply invasive and so risky, and there's a lot of times a lot of cognitive issues afterwards. We really don't want to risk that when we can manage the symptoms of this slow growing glioma with medication for seizures. So currently we're on the watch and wait management phase, although a couple of months ago when I was having a lot more seizures before we updated my dose, there was a thought that maybe it would have to come out, but that seems to not be the first line anymore. So far, mine is behaving the way we expect it to. The next question is, what was your first reaction when you found out? So I was on a run with my youngest daughter. I got a call from the neurologist. I thought it was a little weird that the scans had not been released in my account. Normally they get released right away for me to see them. He said, do you have a moment to chat? And that's when I knew. He said, we got your MRI back and you have a brain tumor and it grew this amount since the last scan. I didn't even know what to say. I was like, I mean, at first I wanted to ask him, is it cancer? He said, we suspect it is. And so you're gonna go see the oncologist as soon as possible, probably next week. And in that moment, I felt like my world ended. I had my beautiful daughter in front of me while I was running. She was 18 months old, and I knew that brain cancer is not good. you know, cancer is never good, but there are other types of cancers that have better prognoses than brain cancer. And I know that brain cancer is up there on the list of very, very deadly cancers and very invasive. I lost it. I couldn't really speak to him anymore. And so I told him I had to call him back, and we talked later, but I immediately called my mom, and then I called my friend who is a neurologist. My boba just got here, so I'm gonna go and grab that little treat. So the next question is, how did you cope with the news emotionally? To be honest, the first thing is that I felt like my heart and my stomach had come out of my body. Like, you know, sometimes when you go on a roller coaster or when you're really stressed or you're waiting for something really important and you feel suddenly like you're gonna vomit and that your stomach is just like, or your heart just like goes all the way down. That's what it felt like. I felt probably the worst thoughts I'd ever felt. I didn't know how I would keep going. I also didn't have that much information. And so, you know, I also wasn't sure what was gonna actually happen. But, you know, when I looked out at my daughter, who was, you know, she was just hanging out in the stroller. She was so happy, had no idea. I realized that I really had to be strong for my kids. They were 18 months and 3 years old at the time. I knew I would get through it, but I have to say the next few weeks after that was some of the darkest days like I ever imaginable. Like, there's only one thing that I could think of that could be worse, and that is if something happened to my children. But something happening to me or my husband would probably be the second worst thing that could possibly happen, especially when I'm 30 years old. I called my mom a lot and I just cried to her, and I did record some of these calls that I haven't been able to listen to them until now. I wanted to remember how encouraging she was and just her voice, you know, when like her encouragement, because one day like she's not going to be around anymore, and so, you know, and so I wanted to just remember that, and I knew that one day I would want to look back and listen to that. And my mom she would not accept that anything was going to happen to me. Like, she would not accept it. So we're going to listen to some of these now, and I think it's going to be a little bit rough, but we'll see. Actually, I have an album on my phone with all my scans and everything. Oh my goodness. I just found this funny meme that someone sent me. God thinking I'm having too much fun. Sprinkle a brain tumor in there.
For the babies, okay? And you have to last and last and last. You will, Leah, okay? I just don't want them to be alone. No, they will not be. You have to fight, Leah. Okay, don't worry. I just don't know what to do because I can't be around them, and I look at them and I'm not going to see them get older. Yeah, you will. You will, and you have to think about that. This is the only thing you have to think about. You have to take care, you have to fight, and you will see them grow and get... Oh, brain cancer is the worst thing you can get. It's like the worst thing you can get. Okay, Leah, they are going to take care. Also, in 2 or 3 years, they will have new medicine, new technology. Please, Leah. I just don't want to die, you know? No, Leah, no, please. You are not dying anytime soon, okay?
My mom was so adamant. She was like, no, it's not possible. You're not gonna die. It was actually so encouraging to hear her say that over and over again. She's like, it's just not gonna happen. She's like this tough French lady, and she was like, I will not let it happen.
Must be a nightmare for you too. Oh, please, Leah. Yes, but I wish it was me. But please, Leah, okay? You know, I texted Ines. She thought it was about you.
My mom said she wishes it was me, and I texted one of my friends right after who is a doctor, and I sent her the scans, like the picture of the scans. She was like, oh, your mom will be okay, you know, like maybe she'll just live a few more years. Oh, now that I know what I know, it's like I can joke about it, but my friend who's a doctor was like, oh, she was like so like, she really thought that this scan was about my mom, because most people in their 30s, like the diagnosis age is generally a lot older. My mom is almost 70.
These guys, they think they're gods, but they're not gods. No. So, really speak to the guy, get all the information.
Ironically though, the brain tumor center at the hospital I go to is the highest point in San Francisco. It's a very godly type of feeling, because they have this whole floor on the highest part of San Francisco in the top of the building, and they overlook the entire city. And you know what? I think it's a metaphor. They're up there in the sky doing God's work, pulling out brain tumors. But I think at the time I was pretty pessimistic. I was like, oh, these people aren't gods. They can't solve everything, but they're pretty damn close. Let me just say that. They're pretty damn close.
It's going to be a few very hard days. You have to go through it, okay?
In that moment, I didn't think that there would ever be a world where I would be able to be happy again and to be able to enjoy my life again. I thought that the world was over. A year later, my life is still really good. I've spoken to some people with much more high-grade tumors than what mine is. Mine is probably a grade 1 or a grade 2, and I've spoken to people with, you know, not good prognoses, and even they've said that they have found ways to love their life again, because sitting around and just feeling sorry for yourself, it's not really productive. It doesn't really accomplish anything. And sometimes the only thing you can do is just keep moving forward and keep trying to live your life, even when seems so impossible to do so.
Recover from that. That's
Yeah.
sad. You know?
Okay, bisous, Mama.
I love you, Leah.
Love you.
Okay, so the next question is, did you share the diagnosis immediately? The answer is yes, because I wanted help. And when I need help, I always ask for it. I did post on my private social media because I wanted to, one, get connected with other people in the community who may have had these types of diagnoses, so that I could figure out, you know, what hospitals to go to and where to go get my different opinions. And two, we needed help with our kids. My mom wasn't able to be there for like another week. The kids at that point, I was a stay-at-home mom, so I needed time to go to all my appointments, and I also just wanted them to still have like a sense of normalcy. The first month was just non-stop appointments because we went to multiple different hospitals. I got more scans. I had appointments like every day, and so we just really needed a lot of help, and luckily people came through for us. People just came out of the woodworks to help us. People that I wasn't even close to at the time sat in my living room while I literally just cried to them, especially that first week before I went to the oncology team and to the neurosurgeon. And some people didn't. Some people ran away. But you know, people have different ways of dealing with grief and dealing with hard things, so it's okay. But I was really proud of the community that I've built. Did you get multiple opinions? Did you go on Google? Did you find any resources online? And the answer to that is, well, these are two questions. One, I did get multiple opinions. We went to multiple of the top universities in the country on the West Coast and the East Coast before ending up with my care in San Francisco. Lucky for us, like one of the best neurosurgeons in the world is in San Francisco at UCSF, and their neuro-oncology team and neurosurgery team is like quite literally top 10 in the country, like objectively. Luckily, it's right in our backyard, so it's not very long to go to the hospital there. The second part of that question was, did you find resources online? So yes, but here's the problem. Going on Google was not good. Google was just, you know, if you look at the percentages on brain cancer, brain tumors, it's really, really not good. That's it. Like there's nothing they can do. But I will say there is one thing that helped me, and that is the R brain cancer on Reddit, like that group. Those are people giving their experiences. And on that group, you know, you read all the most horrible things, but you also get to connect with people all over the world who have a similar situation. So I was able to find people who have low-grade gliomas and see how they're doing now. Some of these people were diagnosed 20 years ago. And I felt like that was the best that I could do, even though I know Reddit can be, you know, a little bit crazy. But the R brain cancer community, that was a good Reddit to be on. I gotta say, that was a good Reddit to be on. Even though it was really sad, that was where I got most of my resources from, and also a lot of recommendations on doctors to see. Yeah, so the internet is not all bad, but stay off of Google. Do not Google, how long will I live with a brain tumor? Don't do that. Trust me. Trust me. How did having a brain tumor impact your life since diagnosis? This is a difficult question to answer. There isn't a single day where I don't think about it, but there are days where it doesn't make me sad. There are a lot of days where I'm so happy and I have a great life. And then one of the other ways that it impacted my life is that there is more uncertainty. None of us know what is gonna happen 5 years from now, 5 months from now, 5 days from now. And so I just had to get more used to the fact that like there is something uncertain already that I know about, you know, like something that could have a bad impact. And that's tough. It's almost like when you have that info, it makes you even more stressed, because like when you have a reason that might cause that to happen sooner, for me, it makes me even more stressed out because I just don't know what the future is. But I think I've come to terms with it, and I think it's actually made me pretty flexible in more of my life, because now I'm okay with uncertainty and like not knowing certain things. Did you have to make any lifestyle changes post-diagnosis? Yes. I'm an avid runner, but running dehydrates you and causes electrolyte imbalances, which seizures love. I have a running coach and I work with my oncology team before marathons to make sure that everything is all set. When I run the New York City Marathon this year, I'm gonna be running with a support runner. It makes a difference because I have to be really careful with how I fuel. I have to put in a ton of electrolytes. I basically just drink salt when I run. So that's like one physical like lifestyle change I've had to make. My medication is very strong. And so every day is like climbing a mountain because everything is just harder. Waking up is harder, focusing is harder, driving is harder. Everything I do is harder because of the extremely bad side effects of my medication. I think it makes me more exhausted by the end of the day. It can be a little tricky because some of the side effects of the medication are actually symptoms of brain tumors. I'm always worried, you know, is it growing? Is it growing? But over time, it's been pretty clear that it's from the medication and not from the tumor. But yeah, so day to day, it's difficult. Things are harder than they used to be, but we go through it. I still run marathons. I went back to work. I still am happy. I still choose to enjoy my life still and make adjustments to my life so that I can still do everything I love. And that's why having my really good oncology team is just really, really, really good. As many side effects as I get from the medication I take for my seizures. Radiation, chemo, infinitely more side effects. And that's why, you know, I put up with the side effects of my medication while waiting to see if we need to do the other treatment options because I want to put that off as long as possible. How has this experience changed your outlook on life? I think what it's shown me is that once something like this happens, when you even just getting that news, you never take anything in life for granted anymore. Once you realize how quickly things can change, like you truly internalize what it means to take something for granted after something like this happens. People always say, you know, don't take things for granted, but it takes something like this happening to truly internalize that. And truly, I'll never take anything for granted ever again. How did your friends and family support you after you were diagnosed? I was surprised about this. People came out of the woodworks to help us. People were just so kind. People I didn't even know were staying on the phone with me for an hour telling me about their experience with their brain tumors. People who had lost parents really young were getting on the phone with me because I was so worried about my kids and what would happen if something happened to me. So older moms who had grown up without parent figures like got on the phone with me and just told me how, you know, they're going to be okay and just gave me a lot of really good advice if that is what would happen. Someone came and did my IVF shots for me because we wanted to freeze some eggs or some embryos, and people were just so nice. And I feel like in that time I really got to see how much love there is in my community and the people who want to help us out. Some people were not as much. Some people kind of shied away and kind of ran away, and I think that might be one, it's like really awkward and they don't want to say the wrong thing. Two, maybe they had traumatic experiences around cancer, around tumors, and so they were worried that maybe they just didn't want to help out because of that. There's like a lot of reasons that people would do that. That's totally fine. But the people who really did help, like we really, really appreciate it. And even to this day, I like remember who really helped me. And every now and then I'll text them and I'll be like, hey, I was just thinking about how much you helped me that time and thank you so much. What are some things people said to help you? I did write them down as I was having calls with people. Here's some quotes that people said to me. I talked to one mom who had lost her parents pretty early, and she had some really good words of advice. And she was also dealing with health problems, and so she had to find ways to talk to her kids about that. What she says to her kids is, I will do everything I can to be present for you as long as I can. And she also said, you can't expect to not be grief-stricken because we are human, and it is okay to be in a state of terror, and that's totally okay. If you haven't lived through the fear that it might be one of your last days, you just cannot understand the amount of fear and terror. Then she also said, parents' love for their children will live beyond your life. That is really what stuck with me, that your children remember you no matter what, even if you're not physically there anymore. And then I loved this comment. This comment made me feel, this was the same lady I was talking to. She said that, and at this time we didn't have a lot about my situation, so she said, we still have a lot to learn about your personal situation. Our story isn't written by Dr. Google. That was so great. Your story is not written by Dr. Google. Just always remember that. People beat the odds. They do all the time. They really, really do. And that was from one of my friends who had a different health situation when she was younger. It really felt good to hear her say that. Are you in therapy? Yes. And I was really lucky because the neuro-oncology team at the hospital I'm being treated at has an entire neuro-oncology, psychology, and psychiatrist team. They literally have their own department just for that. Because the thing with brain tumors is that they impact not only your emotions, but it also impacts a lot of other things. When you get tumors taken out, it can impact everything about your brain. It's really important to have a team like that to also help with cognitive deficits after surgeries and cognitive deficits from treatment. Did you connect with people who also have brain tumors? And the answer is yes, and that was extremely important for me. And I have now a really large community of people who were on the phone with me multiple times and always check in on me. to tell me about their experience with a brain tumor, and they have varying different prognoses and different stages of tumors. Everyone was so kind. I discovered that there is this whole entire community of people who are facing this every single day. Everyone is still loving their life. Everyone is advocating. Everyone is still helping each other. And it's really inspiring. Like, these people are so strong. Like, I've met some people who are missing like a quarter of their brain because of their brain tumor. People who couldn't speak for months after their brain surgeries. It's quite inspiring. Those people are really strong. And the last question is, what advice would you give to somebody facing a brain tumor diagnosis? So the first thing I would say is it sucks. Like, it really sucks. There's no sugarcoating it. It's awful. I don't want to have this toxic positivity of it's gonna be okay, like good vibes. But what I will say is this: there are ways to still love and enjoy your life, even with this kind of diagnosis. There are still ways to have a wonderful life. There are still ways to find happiness. All those things are still possible, even if they don't seem like it at the beginning, and even if not all days are good, and even if that's not how you feel all the time. It's okay for grief to visit you from time to time. It's kind of like a ghost, like in the night. It just like shows up unexpectedly, and that's totally normal. But hopefully anyone who's not at that stage yet can find a way to get to enjoying their life again. Yeah, that's been really important for me and for my family and for everybody. That concludes the Q&A. There's probably a lot of questions I didn't get to, so feel free to ask more questions. Catch you next time. Bye.